Okay, so I'd like to present this little challenge here to create this single view, right, that accepts a double followed by a string. And we can give the dimensions of this square and we'll have a certain background color. And we want precision of 1 decimal place. Now, if we're given a number like 364, it should display 364 and not 364.0. We should also be able to select the font sizes of each of these. And that's it. Okay, so try to implement this and I'll show you my own implementation in a few seconds. Okay, so I'll show you my implementation. So this is a coding challenge. Try to do this on your own. Each of these are separate views, of course. So let's create a new Xcode project. I'm going to call this box text view. Could think of something more creative. And create. And we have our content view. Let's just make sure we're on iPhone 13 mini. And let's create a new view called box text view. So box text view. And in SwiftUI, there's usually more than one way to implement something. And we're just going to see one possible solution. Now, it would be helpful if we could see, where we're going. So we're trying to create something like this. Okay, so let's try to decide what are our parameters. Now we're going to have some background color. I'll just call this color. We're going to have a value, that's the number, which will be a double. We're going to have the text, which is going to be a string, which is just below the value. I want some dimensions, which will be an optional CG float. And let's have the font corresponding to the value to be of type font. And let text font be the font corresponding to the font of the text. Now, I don't want to enter all of these parameters, so I'd like some default values. So let's enter init and grab the default initializer. Okay, and now I'd like to enter some default values. For instance, the dimension, let's set it to infinity by default. Let's set the value font to .headline, and the text font, I'm going to set it to subheadline, but maybe you prefer large title and title or something else. Okay, so we're good in that respect. And because of this 364 versus 13.2, we're also going to need to format our value. So I'm going to create a computed property. Formatted value will be of type string. And let's just write to do implement. And for now, let's just return string of value. Okay, this is definitely not what we want, but for now that'll be just something temporary. Okay, great. Now clearly we're going to need a VStack, but before we continue, let's pacify Xcode. So I'm going to do, I can press on this dot, but I can press Control Option Command F, and I'm going to enter a specific color. So red, green, blue. So say 241 over 255, 249 over 255, and 247 over 255. The value is going to be average length. And the text, oh, that's not that, that's the text, excuse me. The value will be 364, and the text will be average length. And let's actually copy this and put this in an H stack. Oh, I'm missing a comma over here. Wait, let's see, are we good? Yeah, we're good. And let's duplicate this. I'm going to put another one right here where the value of the second box text view is 13.2. And here I'm going to replace this with average days to finish. And I also do want to add the dimension. So I'm going to use a fixed dimension. Now, obviously, this is not the best approach, but this is just like a simple example. So I'm choosing dimension 175. And also over here, let's just clean up the code. And let's add this dimension 175. And also, wait, what's going on? Oh, okay. Finally, let's embed the H stack in a Z stack. And I just want it to look nice. So for a background, I want to have a linear gradient with the colors .white, .opacity 0.6, and after white, let's have indigo, and after that, a gray. And it'll go from top leading to bottom trailing, and finally, ignore safe area. Awesome, so far we've done almost nothing. Okay, we just set up the background and we set up our inputs to the view. We really haven't worked on the box text view yet, right? Now, clearly we're going to need a VStack, so let's jump back up here. And I'm going to just do VStack. Okay, great. Now for the first text, I want to use our formatted value, which we really haven't formatted properly. And for the second text, I want us to use the text. Okay, that's already an improvement. Now I want the font to be the value font. And let's let this be bold. And down here, I want the font to be the text font. Moreover, I want this to be centered if we have a line break. So multi-line text alignment will be that center. And so far, it doesn't look too amazing. Now, we have our VStack over here. So let's fold the code and put a frame right here. The code folding helps us aim. And make sure you use max width. So I'm going to use dim, and max height, also dim. If you don't use max width, max height, then we will have an issue since dim could possibly be infinity. Okay, so far it doesn't look too amazing. Now, sometimes we might not have enough room for our text to fit within this like square that we're going to create. So I'm adding min scale factor 0.1. So it'll shrink the text if our frame gets too small, instead of having like little ellipses. Okay, that's just a minor point. Next, I want some padding. It's worth checking what happens if we don't have that padding. And finally, let's add a background. Okay, now it's starting to look good. So I want a rounded rectangle with corner radius 20. We could let the corner radius be, let it be a parameter, but I decided not to. And for the fill, let's use color, our input color. Okay, great. It looks pretty good. So let's go down to the preview. And again, we could maybe improve the solution. I'm not so happy with the frame, actually. It would be nice if I could avoid it. Thing is, if we remove the frame over here, it kind of hugs this text, and that's not exactly what we want. And then I would remove the dim parameter. Now what I could do is aspect ratio dot fill, and then it's kind of nice. I kind of like this better, but then it's kind of harder to get, you know, the rectangles to be the same size. So I'm gonna remove that and keep the frame. Okay, every solution has its pros and cons. Okay, so now let's go back to the content view. I'm just going to copy everything I had in the preview into the content view, and make sure to add the padding, so I'm not removing the padding over here. And I think this should maybe respond. Let's run this. Sometimes Xcode 15 doesn't really respond very well. Okay, that doesn't look amazing. It's pretty clear what's going on. Okay, let's fold the 8 stack. Let's just try to figure out what's wrong here. I'll get rid of the padding real quick. Oh, I see. So the padding should have been applied to the 8 stack. Okay. And notice that we still have 364.0. So we still have that to do to take care of. So let's go back to box text view. And we have this to do for the formatted value. So let's just take care of that little point, and then we'll be done. So let's erase the to-do. I'm going to say let value new, or let, value new, not the best name, but string format. And I'm going to use format %.1f. So it'll give precision of one value, one decimal place. Now, and we can return, we could return value new, right? Return value new. But that wouldn't help, right? That wouldn't help. And hold on, that should be a %sign, not a $sign. Okay, so now let's do the following. So let's return, okay, so if it has the suffix .0, right? If it ends with a .0, then let's drop the last two values, okay? So I could do value new, drop last two. The problem is this is not a string. So let's convert this into a string. Oops. So string. Or if .0 does not appear at the very end, then just return value new. And that should do it. And now 364 is 364, and 13.2 is 13.2. Now, if I were to replace 13.2 with, say, 13.257, we'd still get 13.2. Because we're only taking, oh, well, it actually rounded that. It kind of surprised me. Okay, that's actually better, though, that it's rounding it. It's actually better that it's rounding. But that did come to me as a surprise. Wait a second. Okay, great. So 13.3 is an approximation of 13.257. Okay, interesting. So great, have an amazing day and see you in the future.